Hi, I'm Bill MacPhee, CEO of MacPhee Media Inc., your partner in mental wellness. Welcome to today's video blog. Today I had a question, and the question is, how come you didn't hear about diagnosis even in hospitals back in the 60s? Well, that's a great question, and I think first of all, there's a couple answers to that, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson today, and just state first of all that in general, I want to talk about psychiatry as being basically a very young field. I mean, a lot of other illnesses go back many, into the 1800s and 1900s where they're recognizable illnesses. People knew there were physical illnesses and things like that. However, psychiatry has only been around a very short while. And so it's a very young field. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that in the 60s, the 50s, and the 60s, when people would show up with signs, psychosis, and mental illnesses and things like that, the thought of the day was that they were psychological problems, that these problems occurred because the way you were brought up, whether it was a dysfunctional family or the way your mother raised you or your father was raised in the house, how you were raised, all these kind of things in the 1950s and 60s. And these were actually truly thought by psychiatrists and psychologists. However, as time went on into the 80s and that when medications first started coming out, and that people realized that mental illnesses were not a psychological problem, that they were basically a chemical imbalance or caused by a genetic factor, chemical imbalance, and stressors, for in the case of schizophrenia. So really, psychiatry is a young illness or is a young field, and mental illness didn't really start coming out of the closet until the 70s and 80s because it was so stigmatized because doctors said that it was the way you were brought up. I can remember my when I was just a toddler and my mom was going through bipolar episodes and everything like that, and I can remember my dad talking about things to the doctor and everything like that, and basically the doctor would say, well, it's the way that the environment is, that way she was raised, the way that your relationships are, and everything like that. However, in saying that, I want to tell you that now uh, everybody knows that mental illness is a biochemical, genetic, and a stressor-related illnesses, and that they have uh, it's not a fault illness; it's a no-fault brain chemistry illness. In saying that, another thing about medications and the diagnosis way back in the 60s in that is that people didn't want to have a diagnosis because they didn't have a whole lot of information. And usually when you would have got a diagnosis, it would have been meant at the end of your life kind of thing as far as the stigma and everything like that. Now, I just want to point a thing about medications that came out in the 70s and how they were discovered. Many years ago, people would be institutionalized, and they'd be institutionalized for a long periods of time. Actually, for the rest for their lives, they would come in as young people who were suffering from psychosis and delusions and hallucinations and all kinds of things like that, and they were basically in the institution for life. They didn't come out. But what happened is that in these institutions, people would come down with physical illnesses, say appendicitis or they would need some kind of operation, and they noticed that when they would put people out to operate on them after their surgery and they were coming out of the anesthetics and things like that, what they noticed is that symptoms of psychosis didn't appear. They were gone. They lessened. And so that's what gave researchers the idea of medications for illnesses that were basically due to psychology. So illnesses such as schizophrenia, bipolar, they thought that was if they tranquilized people, they would make them less of the symptoms. So the point is that in the 50s and the 60s, when medications were being developed, that's when they actually were a sedative medication or in a tranquilizing family of medications. That's why in the older days, 20, 30, 40 years ago, people on medication were walking around like zombies or in slow motion and all this kind of stuff, not alerts, falling asleep all the time, is because the medications were developed in the tranquilizing family. And now that doesn't happen today. There are medications today that are outside of the tranquilizing family and do not have the side effects that older medications have had. So hopefully that answers your questions about that. And if you have a question for me, just email me at bmcphee@magpiemegs.com or go to our website, mentalwellnesstoday.com. Thank you for tuning into this daily video blog, and we truly want to be your partners in mental wellness. Have a great day.